Hey everybody, and welcome to Blake Explains All. This week we're going to be talking about web components. So right now I'm actually on CodePen working on a web components um, just example application, just so I could show you guys a little bit about the mix between HTML and JavaScript and how we can use web components for consistency. So for those of you who don't know, web components right here is the definition of web components. They are an exciting technology that allows developers to create self-contained, reusable code patterns that are easy to control and update. So basically, one of the main reasons we use web components is so that we don't have to retype a lot of the code. So if we have a company, let's say Twitter, and one part of the company is working on this section of code that also interlaps with another part of the code, well, you can update that to a web component, and instead of having to rewrite or copy over the code or remake the code will just be copied in from the web component over to your other side. So basically what this does is it adds to the accessibility of your not only the back end side where you could do editing to the code, but also from the front end side, from the customer's point of view. And so accessibility is really what the internet is all about. So the definition of accessibility here is the practice of making your websites usable by as many people as possible. And of course, as I said, that's not just limited to the front end side where you have customers, but also the back end side. So if you look up web components and why we should use web components, one of the first websites to come up is codeburst.io. This is also another good website for just being able to understand coding. It's good for, if you're interested in other stuff like this, and if you're watching this video, I assume you are, this would be a good resource for you to use. But this is a perfect report on why we should be using web components. So the first reason is code is not for computers. So you can read this if you want, but basically what it means is that coding is not easy to read. We know that it doesn't look easy to read, but what this is saying is that it's supposed to be easy to read. Now, code can work but still be illegible to the human eye, which means it can work on the computer, but not so much if another person were to look at it and they just wouldn't be able to understand it. So this is one of the reasons that we use web components because web components put an emphasis on writing cleaner, as it says right here, and being more semantic markup for several reasons. So better performance, increased accessibility, which we talked about, is the mainstay of the internet, and easier maintainability, which obviously is perfect for everyone in the business. So another reason is brand consistency. If you're working at a company and they're using different sections of code that do the same thing for different parts of the website, that's obviously going to be inconsistent and hard to work with. So the idea is to keep everything consistent so that everybody in the business understands how the code works, how it's running, and what they can do differently to it in ways that they might have not have understood before. So another reason is the business perspective. Native components help you save money. Simple as that. You're not rewriting code. Your teams are working together under the same umbrella, even though they were. Now it's really an interconnected coding activity. It's a no-brainer, really, just to throw them in as a business from the business side. Obviously, very similar from the developer experience. You're just not thinking of it as such a big under a big umbrella. You're more thinking of it as how do I get this to work? It's very, very similar. You want to be able to talk and work with as many people under your company as you can, and web components make it easier so that you're not, again, rewriting code. You can share different parts with different people, and doesn't let it makes you so it doesn't need to retread, which is the main goal. Um, Browsing standards. So basically, all the browser vendors got up together and agreed on a soft standard for defining web components. So if you use web components, you will be up to browsing standards. So browsing these to be considered a core element of web components, you would have to be it would have to be verified by these browser vendors, and these include custom elements, HTML templates, shadow DOM, HTML imports, and browser support. So number six is existing best practices. So it's always good to have a best practice, as we've talked about a lot before on the channel. Web components are the next big thing. They have been in development for a couple years now, and we know for a fact this is where we are going. So if not just in the business, not just on the web, but anywhere, if you know that the world is going somewhere, it's probably not a bad idea to get on the good side of that idea or to really understand it beforehand so that you can use it in the future. And those are pretty much the reasons why any business should be using um, web components in general. So thank you for watching Blake Explains All this week, and we'll be back next week with more Blake Explains All. Thank you.